In the relentless pursuit of power and recognition, how far can a human being go before crossing the fine line that separates ambition from excess? The story of Bellerophon, the legendary hero of Greek mythology, invites us to reflect on this question that echoes through time. It is easy to admire the achievements of a warrior who overcame monsters and nearly impossible challenges. But what happens when that same strength turns into an insatiable desire to surpass the limits imposed by the gods themselves? What happens when ambition turns into hubris, the dangerous arrogance that leads to inevitable downfall? In this video, we will explore not only the feats of Bellerophon, but also the hidden dangers that lie in challenging what seems insurmountable. After all, where is the true limit of humanity? From childhood, Bellerophon and Deliada lived under the shadow of a rivalry that seemed inevitable. As brothers, there was always an expectation of camaraderie, but the reality was quite different. Deliada, with his natural talent for martial combat, always seemed to be ahead, leaving Bellerophon in the position of an eternal apprentice. However, this tumultuous relationship was a kind of invisible force that pushed Bellerophon to become stronger, more cunning, and to tirelessly seek to overcome the limitations imposed on him. Perhaps you have felt this pressure in your own life, where the challenge of surpassing someone close can be both a blessing and a curse. Over the years, Bellerophon's determination finally began to bear fruit. His sword skills, which once seemed awkward, were now lethal, and his physical strength was no longer lacking. At some point, Bellerophon was no longer the weaker brother that everyone knew, but rather a formidable warrior. However, this change brought consequences that he could never have foreseen. In a fight that should have been just another training session, a slip, a fraction of a second of carelessness, resulted in the tragedy that would mark his life forever. There is no denying that in moments of triumph, it is easy to forget how thin the line between success and disaster can be. After this fateful event, Bellerophon was forced to face the consequences of his newfound strength. The pride of having become a great warrior quickly turned into an unbearable burden. The accidental death of Deliada was not just the loss of a brother, but also the beginning of a cycle of guilt and regret that would haunt him incessantly. It is as if by achieving his goal of becoming stronger, he had lost something fundamental, something he might never have valued until that moment. But as history teaches us, sometimes the path to redemption begins precisely when everything seems lost, and this journey was just beginning for Bellerophon. After the tragic incident, Bellerophon was marked not only as a fratricide, but also as an exile, forced to leave Corinth and face the harsh realities of the world. Wandering aimlessly, he traversed unknown lands, confronting not only external challenges, but also the internal battle he waged against his own conscience. This period of exile, which for many would be a cause for despair, ended up becoming an unexpected path to redemption. It is interesting to note how, in history, moments of solitude and separation often serve as catalysts for great personal transformations. It was during this solitary journey that Bellerophon found refuge in Tiryns, where King Pegasus, known for his wisdom and hospitality, offered him not just shelter, but a chance at expiation. The king understood the gravity of the crime Bellerophon carried in his heart, but he also saw the potential for redemption that existed within his soul. Under Pegasus' guidance, purification rituals were performed, and Bellerophon began to understand that, although he could not erase the past, he still had the power to shape his future. It was as if life was offering him a second chance, a rebirth. However, this opportunity for redemption did not come without challenges. Living in Tiryns meant constantly facing the judgment of others, dealing with the looks of distrust and suspicion from everyone around him. Even so, Bellerophon found the strength to move forward, using each day as a new beginning, a new chance to prove his worth. This phase of his life teaches us that, even in the darkest moments, the search for redemption can lead us to unexpected paths, where true strength lies not in avoiding mistakes, but in learning from them and moving forward, no matter how difficult it may seem. Bellerophon's life in Tiryns seemed to be taking a positive turn, but as in every great story, fate had more challenges in store for him. Queen Sthenibia, impressed by the hero's strength and charisma, developed a dangerous attraction to him. It's curious how sometimes the greatest traps arise just when we believe we are safe. Sthenibia, used to getting what she wanted, decided that Bellerophon would be her next trophy, but she did not count on the unwavering loyalty he had for King Pegasus. Bellerophon, knowing that yielding to the queen's charms would betray not only the king, but also the values he had adopted for his new life, firmly rejected her. However, this rejection triggered Sthenibia's fury, and feeling humiliated, she decided to turn the tables. In a cruel maneuver, she falsely accused him of attempting to violate her, an accusation that could ruin everything Bellerophon had achieved thus far. This is a clear example of how justice can sometimes seem distant and how a difficult moral choice can bring unpredictable consequences. King Pegasus, as much as he valued Bellerophon, felt pressured by social conventions and the scandal caused by the accusation. Unable to make a direct decision, he opted for a more subtle, yet no less deadly solution. He sent Bellerophon on an apparently impossible mission, hoping that the hero would not return. Thus, a new journey began for Bellerophon, one that would lead him to confront not only mythological monsters, but also the demons that resided in his own heart. And, as life often shows us, it is these challenges that truly define who we are. Sent to Lycia with a mission to kill the Chimera, Bellerophon faced a challenge that seemed to surpass any human limit. The Chimera was not just a monster. It represented chaos and terror, with its mixture of lion, goat, and serpent devastating everything around it. Faced with this task, many would have succumbed to fear, but Bellerophon, guided by an almost irrational courage and a desire to prove his worth, accepted the challenge head-on. For him, this was the opportunity to transform the unjust accusation he had suffered into a story of heroism that would be remembered for generations. Luck, or perhaps fate, smiled upon Bellerophon in the form of Pegasus, the legendary winged horse. With the help of this mythological being, Bellerophon not only found a way to fight against the Chimera, but also overcame the limitations imposed by the earth and the human body itself. Mounted on Pegasus, he rose above earthly dangers, delivering precise and deadly aerial attacks against the creature. It's interesting how, sometimes in our own lives, when we feel cornered by seemingly insurmountable challenges, a new perspective, a new mount, can be what we need to turn the tide. The triumph over the Chimera not only saved Lycia from terror, but also elevated Bellerophon to the status of a living legend. His name echoed throughout Greece, and the admiration he received was immeasurable. However, this victory also planted the seeds of something deeper within him, a sense of invincibility that gradually began to take hold of his heart. After all, if he could defeat such a fearsome monster, what else could be beyond his reach? And so, while the laurels of victory still resounded, a new journey began, one that would lead him to question the limits of his own humanity. With all his achievements, Bellerophon began to believe that he was destined for something far greater than mortal life. This confidence, which initially was a driving force, soon turned into hubris, the arrogance that the gods of Olympus so greatly feared. Bellerophon began to consider that his courage and skills made him worthy of joining the immortals, an idea that distanced him from humility and brought him closer to his inevitable downfall. It's curious how success, if not well managed, can become the path to one's own destruction. Determined to prove his ultimate worth, Bellerophon once again mounted Pegasus, this time with the goal of reaching Mount Olympus. He wanted to sit beside the gods as an equal. However, his unbridled ambition did not go unnoticed by Zeus, who saw this attempt as an act of disrespect. In response, the king of the gods sent a small but lethal wasp to sting Pegasus. Bellerophon's fall was swift and devastating, not only physically, but also morally. The man who had defeated monsters now found himself as nothing more than a mortal, fragile, and broken. After the fall, Bellerophon withdrew from society, wandering the world as a shadow of his former self. He had learned, in the hardest way possible, that hubris is always punished, and that attempting to surpass the limits imposed by the gods inevitably leads to ruin. This part of his story reminds us that, no matter how high we climb, it is essential never to lose sight of our roots and our mortality. Because, in the end, true greatness does not lie in challenging the gods, but in recognizing one's own limits and living in harmony with them. The story of Bellerophon teaches us that the line between ambition and arrogance is thinner than we might imagine. The real challenge is not in defeating monsters or conquering new horizons, but in recognizing our own limits and learning to live wisely. And you, how far are you willing to go to achieve your goals? Are you ready to deal with the consequences of crossing the line? Reflect on this. And while you're on this journey, remember that the learning doesn't end here. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and continue exploring the mysteries of history and Greek mythology with us. The next chapter might change the way you see the world and yourself.